So I'm on 29, which is, picking up where we were, is you know, not only do you have to manage people, places, things, activities, situations with very frank with yourself, candid with yourself, objective thought. You have to be very careful of who you let in. Because for the most part, none of us are really good at keeping people from wounding us one way or the other, or getting rid of them. So there's an issue of litmus tests and there's an issue of obstacle courses. Almost every super successful person I know uses both. So like for me, a litmus test is simple punctuality. All right? My theory is if they can't or won't keep small commitments, it's pretty hopeless to think they're going to keep big and important ones. So people will, like, they'll be scheduled to meet me somewhere and it'll be, well, if you don't have a cell phone, how are we going to communicate with you if we're running late? Say, I don't want to be communicated with if you're running late. I'll be where I'm supposed to be. I've missed twice in a decade. Okay? You be where you're supposed to be. We don't have a problem. Right? And so I think that's kind of a good one, is can they manage? I work by phone appointment, so people miss one, maybe, miss two. This is not somebody I want anywhere near me, because they're going to mess up something significant if they can't keep the little stuff. There's a deal litmus test. It's really very simple. All right? We're to do a deal together. Are there 3 people who've done deals with you more than once? You got 3. No. I'm unlikely to be the first who has a great experience and wants to get in bed with you twice. If you don't already have 3, we're both too old. There's a very famous person in this business who can't give you one who would ever do anything with him a second time. And every time somebody does something with him, I'm going, what are you thinking? There's like 50 dead bodies scattered from here to there from relationships with this person. You think you're going to be the first he doesn't screw? You're going to be 51. That's what you're going to be. So that's a litmus test. The version of the punctuality thing that James Tollison used to use was the hamburger test. I won't take you through the whole story, but it was a go fetch under very specific instructions. And if you couldn't meet the instructions, we have a number of people who now in hiring, they have deliberately set up litmus tests. And gee, if you can't follow those instructions, we know you're not going to follow instructions when it's important. So let's weed them out. I do have a kind of a related tip, and it's so good. I give it out a lot. I heard it 10 years ago now. Guy won the lottery, and he waited to come forward until he had time to call everybody he knew and ask to borrow $1,000. And he needed it immediately, and I can't tell you why I need it. And that cut down dramatically on the number of people who came forward after it turned out he had won the lottery. It's such a good tip. If you ever hit it big, you sell your company for $100 million. Before you tell your family and all your friends, call them up, tell them you need $1,000. Pick a number that they can manage but is a stretch. So it might be $1,000 for him, it might be 10 grand for him, it might be $100 for your ne'er-do-well brother-in-law who never holds a job. But pick a number before you let them know you just came into 50 million bucks. Obstacle courses are kind of a hybrid of litmus test and obstacle course. This is, will they do anything that demonstrates initiative, responsibility, resilience, persistence, whatever the qualities are you want them to have. So, like I've had relatives obviously want money from me for their business ventures. The first litmus test, by the way, if I'm in their house, is I'm looking for the books, right, that relate to this wonderful thing I'm going to put money in, or at least in general, that show I'm studying business. No books, no money. But then the next version of that is the obstacle course. Okay, you want to start a restaurant, and you want my money, and through some accident that occurred in the back seat of a car at the drive-in movie and there was no condom, we're related. Okay? So I now am supposedly obligated to support this process. Right? Fine. So here's what I'd like to know. And I now give the homework list, right? Here's the 16 things I want you to go find out, get, take good notes, come back and tell me, right? The market conditions in this town you want to put this thing, the average home price, the demographics, who else has a restaurant there, how many American Express card holders there are in that town who regularly go to restaurants, and I'm not going to tell you how to find out. Right? But that information is readily available. Come back to me with that stuff, and then we'll talk. That ends 90% of it. They never bring it up again because they're not going to go do that. Right? If they did, by the way, I'd kind of be encouraged. Right? So this is inside family baseball, but it's such a good obstacle course example. And I encourage you to use these. I'm sure you all have dysfunctional family. So one of my two brothers has a daughter. And when my father was dying, the daughter was in high school, junior. And living with my brother. Not great circumstances. He's the worst of the two in many respects. And Dad gets from me, you got to help, I don't remember her name, go to college. Because you got money and he ain't got any money. And through this thing that happened in the backseat of a car at the drive-in movie, you're related and you get fine. Right? Okay. So here's my conversation now. I get them together, brother and girl, and I say, deathbed agreement, I'm going to pay your way through college. Here's all I ask. Number one, you got to go to the college, you got to go to a bank, you got to go to a lawyer. Somehow you got to open an account that I can put the money into and the college can take it out. And your dad, my brother, can't touch it. First thing you got to do, right? You got to send me the paperwork so I see that you've done that. Second thing, here's a list. I compiled it for you. There's 100 books on it. You got to read one a month and send me a book report. And you got to start now. You pick anyone you want on this list, right? So I got a whole list of, how to get your shit together in life books. Number three, you got to maintain a C average. This is at Arizona State, okay? I mean, 5 years in a row, #1 party school ranked by Playboy. Okay? How do you get an Arizona State co-ed in your car? Slow down. That's big Arizona State joke. So you got to maintain a C average. #4, there's only 5. #4, can't get pregnant. And #5, can't get arrested. Make this list. I pay, and ultimately I pay for all of it. Right? That's all I ask. Right? How many of these things do you think happened? Exactly. You got it. You got it to a T. Okay? Never opened the account, which is enough, right? No book reports, pregnant, arrested, and a D average until she dropped out. Guess who didn't have to give any money? Me. Obstacle course, right? I do it all the time. Almost every ask from anybody gets the list of notes to go get, come back to me with this information, or the obstacle course of things you have to do. In our business, so I will often sell with a tail. I don't know if you know what that means. So if I go speak to Clint Arthur's group, I will sell some resources from the front of the room, and I will usually sweeten the offer with there's a private coaching call, there's a marketing critique. That's called a tail, right? And now, in today's world, for us, in my business, the tail wags the dog. Pretty much if you don't do that in front of most groups, you don't sell stuff. Because they don't really want stuff. Because that requires them to do something. So, these tails, I hate tails. You know, it just like ruins the whole experience for me. I just had a $100,000 day, and I can send order forms. Vicki can get the stuff shipped. But shit, I'm not done. Now I got 22 calls I'm going to have with people I don't really want to talk to. And now it's like just taking all the fun out of it. You know? So if I don't really want to do those calls, if I don't really want to do those critiques, I just set up an obstacle course. And the more elaborate the obstacle course, the more of them will go away. So if they have to jump through a couple of hoops, they got to fill out a questionnaire, they got to send the questionnaire in, it has to come no earlier than 30 days before the time they want to call, but no later than these number of days before they want to call, and it all goes away. Now, if there's whales in there and I actually want to do the calls or I want to do the critiques because I'm going to get a client out of it, I don't create the obstacle course. If I really want to follow through on the tail, we call them and schedule the calls, right? So you can regulate people's behavior. Customer, client, patient, staff, family. You can regulate their behavior by litmus tests and obstacle courses. Know that hardly anybody will go through much of an obstacle course to get whatever it is they came to you and asked for. Right? They just won't do it because only 5% of the pyramid is still right. Okay. Page 30. Don't do anything based on should. So here's one that happens to everybody with your staff. Greg Luther will particularly appreciate this. So after my big accident, my racing accident, it is true they come in threes. So 7 months later when I'm back driving, I immediately had the second one and I immediately had the third one. They were minor compared to the bad one, but the third one could have been bad. And if you go to the track with us Saturday night, you will see horse has a bridle on it, and it has a rein on each side that buckle in the rings of the bridle, just like a pleasure horse, if you've been around a pleasure horse. And the lines come back to the guy sitting in the sulky. These are important because it's how you steer. And these things, no matter how much we'd like to impugn human intelligence to them, they don't have human intelligence. Some are smarter about what they do than others, but they really can't be trusted to drive themselves. So I am behind the gate, third position over. We are coming up to speed behind the starting gate, and I have no right line tied to anything. It is flapping in the breeze. This means horse goes, vroom, and would run over the guy in the 2-hole and the guy in the 1-hole, and we'd all be in a heap. Fortunately, they hadn't got up the gate. We pass right in front of them, and I'm in the infield running around with no ability to steer. Now, the line should have been fastened to the bridle. And the groom, that's the word for the person who takes care of the horse, should have fastened them and should have checked them. There's a few things you check, like the pilot checks on the plane right before you go out. Like, are the lines fastened? If they wear hobbles on their legs, are their legs actually in the holes of the hobble? Is the actual sulky fastened to the horse on both sides? That's kind of a biggie. It's a handful of things to check. And yeah, she should have done her job. However, I'm the one out in the infield running around in a circle with no ability to steer. She's inside watching. So if you have a brain about this, you check your own lines. Yes, I shouldn't have to. That's what I paid this person to do. And they're supposed to do it. And they certainly know to do it. And all of that. But should doesn't help you when you're out there running around in a circle in the infield until you get thrown off. Who should have done what is of no use whatsoever. Almost everybody does it with their employees, their vendors, kind of everybody you depend on. You have this long list of things they should do, they should know to do, they should get right, and they should not have to be supervised, micromanaged, policed, verified, etc. You all got them, right? You sign tax returns that get sent to you with little yellow stickies on them of where you are supposed to sign. How many of you in here do it? Raise your hands, nice and proud, right? The more money you make, the more likely you are to do it because the fucking return gets thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker. Mine's over 300 pages. And there's a bunch of places to sign. I have it on good authority. The ones they want Trump to release are over 13,000 pages. It is impossible for anybody to decipher them. All right? However, and I have the number one CPA firm in Ohio as my CPA firm. I've had them for a long time. Every year. There has not been a year I haven't caught a mistake. Not a year. Sometimes minor, but sometimes significant. 30, 40, 50 grand, significant. Which if you're 50% taxes, if you add it all up, 50 grand mistake is really 100 grand of what you got to earn, even for me. That's like 5 days of sitting in a room talking to people. Which it's not the worst, but on the list of the top 10 things I'd like to do during the week before I drop dead, it ain't even on the it ain't even on the list of the top 10, right? No offense intended. But, seriously, there's not a year. And they're really good. But it's really complicated. And I have an eye for certain things because I know what I did. And I know this should, wait a minute, why is this this? But if you just sign where the yellow sticky notes are, yeah, they should get it right. They get paid a lot of money to do this. There's a team of them. They all went to CPA college, whatever that is. I'm a poor high school graduate who can barely count. They're professionals. They're the experts. What do I know about amortization, depreciation, yada, yada? I know that number isn't right. I may not even be able to tell you why that number's not right, but I can tell you that number's not right. We had mainframe computers in the old days in this company I wound up owning, generating inventory reports. I could walk through the warehouse and tell you the inventory report was wrong. I didn't have to count, I just knew. I guarantee you, we haven't got that number of those things. Well, I think the chief financial officer, before I fired him, used to say, oh, the computer says we do, the computer's right. How do you know? I said, I know. I smell it. That shit ain't here. Right? But if I never walk through the warehouse, right? So when you do things based on should, and yeah, they should, but you will be, whatever version of it is for you, you will be out in the infield one day, running around in a circle with no line. That's where you're going to be. I have not yet gotten the bike ever since without tugging on the lines. By the way, it pisses the groom off. I can see it in her. She's irritated every time I do it. I don't care. Once was enough for me. Yes, you're a pro. I trust you. However, let me just tug on the lines for kicks and giggles. You know? So should is a bad thing. Okay? Next should, biggie. Gratitude. The road to disappointment and the poorhouse is paved with anticipation of gratitude. Oh, they should be eternally grateful. I lifted them out of the gutter and made them, no. I was in this chiropractor's office once, waiting for him because he idiotically is paying me to be there for a day consulting and still treating a patient. And I overhear the conversation about Pizza Friday. Because he springs for pizza on Fridays. Doesn't even do lunch and learn. He brings food in. And here's what I hear. And that cheap son of a bitch, he gets the pizza from the place he has a coupon for. He came out, he said, what do you want to talk about next? I said, putting an end to Pizza Friday. That's what I want to talk about next. We can cross that thing off your list because you aren't ever doing it again. Right? So you think customers, employees, vendors, family members, your dog, you think that there's this well of gratitude there that will color their behavior no matter what, and you're right, it should. But if you rely on shoulds, you are going to be severely disappointed from time to time. And you may wind up spinning around in the middle of the field. Third one. This should be an easy sale. I made it so brain dead. This is how people lose their ass in advertising and marketing. Is I built such a perfect offer, and it's so perfect for these customers, and they love me so much. All I got to do is tell them it exists. That's how good it is. This is brain dead. It's easy. It's free, for God's sakes. All I got to do is sign up for it. It's free. And then they get a 2% response, and they're all peeing and moaning about it. I'm going, house list, 2% response. That's par. Okay? You might do a little less than par. You might do a little better than par. But anytime you think it's easy, it ain't. Sure, they should get it. They should all buy it. All you should have to do is tell them. But you can't bank that. So those are your big shoulds. My big person advice is, page 31, act as if everybody you deal with is a dim-witted, distracted, utterly unreliable idiot. Right? This allows room to be pleasantly surprised all the time. Ron White has this joke about his dog with these big ears, and the dog ain't real bright. And he waits till the dog is asleep and snoring pretty good, and then he sticks M&Ms up under its ears, and the dog wakes up and finds the M&Ms, and every day he's pleasantly surprised. Right? So every day you can be pleasantly surprised if you'll follow this methodology. If you don't follow this methodology, you are almost assured of some very disappointing days. First of all, people forget their jobs every weekend. Right? So they report to Monday they need orientation. Just the way it is. Right? A tactical example. Right? And every once in a while, I still miss it. I just missed it. So it's fresh in my mind. Paper trail, everything. We have a conversation. We've been doing business for 30 years. You're smart. You're not an idiot. We have a conversation about one thing. I should paper trail it immediately. The conversation we had yesterday, here's what we agreed to. Right? You will wear a tie and meet me for dinner. If I don't paper trail it, I am going to be disappointed. Now, will you be a little grumpy, just like Linda is when I check the lines? Yeah. You go, what the fuck? This is like he thinks I'm an idiot. Privately, I think you could be an idiot on any day at any moment. I don't really think you're an idiot all the time, but I do think we're all capable of being real stupid sometimes. So you should paper trail. So I just had it. I'm not going to tell you with who, but with somebody I work with all the time. I do a lot of business. They're smart. They're competent. They're capable. And I did something 2 months ago, scheduling with them verbally, face to face, with both of our calendars in front of us. And 3 days ago, I got the blank look routine. You know that look, right? Right? We never did. So we most certainly did. Right? No. I don't remember that at all. Whose fault? Mine. Right? Not hers. Mine. Because I didn't go home and paper trail. So you will help yourself a lot. And you got to understand how sloppy we've got. So the third leading cause of death in America is medical errors. Third leading cause of death in America. According to researchers at Johns Hopkins University have calculated that the mistakes from undetected complications to simple medication mix-up account for more than 235,000 deaths a year. The study leader told the Washington Post, it boils down to people dying from the care they receive rather than the disease for which they are seeking care. This is not new. Many years ago, my father was Guillain-Barré syndrome. He's in the hospital. He really can't move. Everybody knows he can't move. I come in to visit. He's all upset because they have scheduled him for a treadmill test tomorrow. He can't get out of bed. He's immobile. What am I going to do? I said, well, if they stand you up on the treadmill and turn it on, the problem will solve itself. You will go whoosh. And I'll be rich. He did not find this funny. And my friend Joan Rivers died essentially from medical errors. Her fault, because she shouldn't have been getting the procedure she was getting where she was getting the procedure. But still, she acted on should. But we live in an incredibly sloppy society. Think about this, 235,000 deaths. Forget how many people they almost killed. Just this. Just not telling people about side effects. If you go into a hospital today and you don't have a medical advocate with you, especially if you stay overnight, good luck getting out. The only time I've been here recently was the racing accident. And they almost killed me. And Carla has a medical background. If she hadn't been there, they probably would have killed me. I mean, what they did was worse than the damn injury. All the way from the ambulance ride to what they did in the hospital. And you're like out of it, right? You don't know. Some hospitals are, here's how bad it is, they're formalizing it. There are hospitals who now have, so here's how it works kind of off books generally. Right? God forbid Leonard goes to the hospital, right? And he's got to stay there for a week for whatever. And you're going to be there as much as you can, but you got a dental practice, and if you don't at least check in every day, the inmates are going to burn the place down, and you got a dog to feed, and whatever, right? So you can't be there all the time. How it happens normally off books is you go to a nurse who's friendly to you, and you say, hey, look, if I slip somebody $100, can they kind of hang around after their shift for a few hours until I get here at 7 o'clock? This is what goes on all the time, okay? It's the underground economy of the hospital. Okay? Some hospitals are formalizing it. So have you ever bought a car, and then when you go to pick up the car, they sit you down for the aftermarket thing, and hey, we could add the fancy mirrors, and we could, that sales process, right? They're doing the same thing in a hospital. You get them checked in, all of that. They now take you in a little closing room, and they say, now they say it more elegantly than I'm going to say it. They say, we are quite capable of screwing up and killing him. And there's a lot of different ways we can do that, right? We make a lot of mistakes around here. And so when you're not here, you're probably going to want somebody just in there watching us to make sure we don't screw up. We have 3 levels of plans. All right? So you can have a registered nurse who sits in there all the time you're not here, and that's so much an hour. Okay? Or you can have a licensed practitioner nurse who's not quite as good as an RN, and she'll sit in there, and that's so much. Or you can have a nurse intern who's not quite as good as either one of those two, but better than nothing. And like she would spot the treadmill test when it took 4 people to get the guy out of bed, and she would say, wait a minute, you can have them for so much an hour. They're selling it. That's how bad this is. And the slop is everywhere. Now, in most cases, it's trivial, right? I mean, I fly into the private jet terminal the last time, and I say, I'm going to go get the car and pull it up out front, and you guys bring the bags out. 10 minutes later, no guys. Go look for guys. They're over by the door where you can drive the car in and drive it up to the plane to get the bags, inexplicably believing I'm coming over there, but they have pulled the bags all the way from the plane, all the way to the graded driveway where you pull in and out, and they're standing over there. I said out front. They didn't hear out front. They heard, I'm going to pull the car up. They completed the sentence with words I didn't say. Well, no big deal. But if it was in a hospital, it's a big deal, right? It also makes me worry because these are the same guys checking the plane before it flies. And where I pull the car is not a big deal, but like which mountain you fly into is kind of a big deal. This is the world we live in. And so it is like now mission critical. When I was, and you were there, when I was at Robin Robin's office the last time, I made them make me a copy. It's on page 32. It's like fabulous. It's the sign that's in the bathroom. Now this is for rational adults who are using an office bathroom. It's a big sign that says, always check the toilet seat. Make sure it is down and clean for the next person. Wipe any drips on front of the toilet and floor. Guys, this means you. Right? If the wastebasket is full, smash down the contents with your foot or go empty it. Spray some air freshener. That would be nice. Right? This is big. It's on the wall. I'm going, I got to have it. Because this is exactly how we need to go through life now. This is it. Because we have to assume they're all idiots, or under the best of circumstances, they're not always idiots, but they could be idiots at any moment. So I want to talk about one more thing before we shift to deals. Oh, and Keith, are you here? Keith Lee? Keith Lee? Okay. If you could just make sure in 10 minutes or so I have him back in here. So, guy, you'll all like this. You can all use this. It's yours to use. Guy calls his manager and his general manager, guy that owns the company, calls his manager in. And he says, look, we just completed, a CPA firm completed a 5-year audit, and we figured out you've been embezzling for 5 years. All the vendor invoices are inflated to double, triple what they should be. Clearly, you're getting kickbacks left and right. I also found out you're selling our leads to a competitor for cash. On top of that, Bob, we've done mystery shopping. You're supposed to be supervising the sales clerks, answering the phones. Nobody's using the script. On top of that, Bob, I've identified that every time I'm out of town, you don't come in till noon, and you leave at 3. On top of that, Bob, I found out 2 weeks ago you're sleeping with my wife. I'm telling you right now, Bob, one more thing, okay, and you're out of here. Okay. Well, isn't that how most people manage? Isn't this it? This is it, right? So how you run your shop, keyword, your shop, all right? So there's a woman, a client of mine had her as a speaker, and Tony does it too, the guy from Zappos. So Zappos, big deal. They have the chief happiness officer. And she's out on the speaking circuit talking about this. And her job is to make sure everybody who works at Zappos is happy. Right? And so this is different than a human resources. This is happy. Okay? So she, of course, coordinates parties and makes sure everybody's birthday gets taken care of. Anybody that seems unhappy, they have a little session with to see why they're unhappy and what they can do about it. There's a whole protocol for how we make sure everybody's happy all the time. And companies are hiring him and her to run in and talk about their whole happiness thing. And it's widely reported. It's in all the business journals. People have picked up on this. There's now a little industry of happiness workplace experts running around giving seminars about this. What they never report is the other thing Tony at Zappos has talked about. This has been dropped from all the reporting about this, which is that his other advice is identify the 10% of the employees who are least enthusiastic about all this happiness shit and fire them. Right? Get rid of them. Because this will encourage and motivate the 90% who are still there to be happy. This part of the advice is left out of all the articles. I had to dig to get this part. Now, this isn't new, right? This is, firing will continue until morale improves, right? That ain't new. Jack Welch identified the 20% who are the worst, fire them every year. If there's not 20%, you got to fire 20% anyway, just to get everybody's attention. This is the same stuff. But everybody's heard the first part of this now that they like, right? Oh, let's make everybody happy and everything will be better. Well, but what about the ones who just refuse to be happy? Oh, well, they got to go. Oh, I didn't hear that part of this story. So I have tactics. You have heard all of them. I'm going to be very quick. But I think it's important to remind you of and I will say, there's a few things I do talk about that I have no legitimate moral authority to talk about. This is one of them in that it has been a long time since I have had to personally and actively manage a bunch of employees. I have done it, and I have a lot of clients who are in this position. So I still deal with it through them, but I admit to you, having said that, however, I can tell you that the ones I get to tactically adopt this list are happier than the ones who don't. Their people may not be, but they are. Okay? Number one, hire thick-skinned people. Do not hire people who are hypersensitive, because sometimes you need to throw something at them and not have them take it personally. Find and hire people who are overperforming in crappy jobs. This is the number one best piece of recruiting advice I got. Everybody I get to do it is amazed at how well it works. Get off of Monster.com. Get off of Indeed.com. Get off of all this other bullshit. Go out in your community and find somebody who is overperforming in a really bad job. Most of what you need people for, you can teach the aptitude. None of you are running a nuclear physics facility. We got a script and we need them to make a phone call. Okay? Hire for attitude. And so the waitress who is unbelievably good at Denny's, who you say to yourself, really, if it weren't for the bad teeth, she should be working at Morton's. That's your gal. She's overperforming in a crap job. Recruiter or him. I don't go any place fancy to get what hair I got left cut. It's like pointless. There's a sports clips right next to my post net. You walk in, the ESPN's on the thing. You don't get the same person twice. It's just, it don't take much anymore. And most of them are not, they're not spectacular. I mean, sport clips a couple weeks ago, and this gal is, great. I'm not talking about as a hairstylist. I mean as a human being. She's overperforming in this job in the way she is relating to me. Like she should be in a high-end salon. However, she's 52. Everybody else that works at Sport Clips is like 12. She's 52. I can't even believe they hired her. She's got bad teeth. Okay? So she's probably been in crap jobs her whole life. If I needed anybody, I would have recruited her on the spot. And if she has to see people, we can fix her teeth. Right? This is a fixable issue. Mm-hmm. Bad attitude about work is not really a fixable issue. You are not going to fix that. Goes right with it. Don't recruit from the same places and the same ways as everybody else recruits. What part of Renegade didn't you get? If everybody you know is recruiting by Monster.com, the one thing you know is you should not be recruiting on Monster.com. Because 95% of everybody you know who hires anybody is dysfunctional. Have a program. This is my new slogan. Employers' lives matter. Mm-hmm. This is like when I go to Walmart. The only thing about Walmart that irritates me is there's a reserved parking place for everybody but me. Okay? There's handicapped, there's fat people, there's pregnant women, there's disadvantaged minority, there's employee of the month. I got to park way over there. Right? There's no rich white guy who's going to spend a lot of money at Walmart. No sign. Every time I hope. Nope. There's one for everybody else. Okay? Same deal here. Okay? You are not in business, okay, to accommodate everybody who gets a paycheck from you. It's your shop, your program. Here's the program. Follow the program or get gone. Now, it mandates that you train it. So you can't? Well, they should know it. I told them once. No. If you are going to have them, so my advice is always, if you can figure out how not to have them, don't have them. Great thing Guthrie Rinker did is they figured out how to sell proactive and vending machines instead of mall carts. Eliminates a bunch of people that have to be hired, fired, trained, coached, mystery shopped, all that went away. The machine sells it. If you can figure out not to have them, my advice is don't have them. Get down to 2. All right? But if you're going to have them, you got to train them a lot. You have to have conversations with them on a regular basis of what the hell we do around here and why we do it that way. Walt famously, he didn't just make the employees come to traditions classes. He made the earth mover driver who's digging up the dirt and doesn't even work for Disney. Works for the construction company. You got to come to traditions class too. I don't want to. You got to go to class because you got to know what we do around here, why we do it. And with your own people, you don't get to have that conversation once a year on work. Does it work with your kid? Keith and I are going to talk about performance reviews. Try running a kid that way. The annual performance review. The house will be in ashes. The neighbor's cat, is going to be a shoe. The car's going to be wrecked. I mean, no, we got to train. Enforce. You got to have enforcement if you want the result you're training on. Coach the coachable, fire the rest. Winners want to be coached. They actually care about doing well, and they will respond to coaching. Those who don't respond to coaching, right now, in the NFL, they get traded to the Browns. The joke used to be Buffalo. It used to be Buffalo. Jimmy Johnson said, we trade them to Buffalo. They had a Dallas Cowboys helmet. They wake up on Tuesday morning, their ass is in Buffalo. They don't know what happened to them. They weren't coachable. Right? Now they all wind up here. Right? We got people that can't hit the ground with a football from here, and they're our quarterback. And we got them from, fire fast, hire slow. Everybody does the opposite, right? We fire slow, we procrastinate endlessly, all sorts of reasons. Susie really needs the job. Well, again, are you related to her? Is Susie your employee by your dad and mom not having a condom on a Tuesday? Is this what has happened? If not, it's not you don't, who cares? That's not the relationship here. Susie really needs a job. Oh, Susie's been with me for 32 years, and now she's a toxic disaster. But she's been with me for 32 years. I don't care. I don't care. What difference does that make? Right? I mean, yeah, that guy didn't shoot up the place yesterday until he shot up the place yesterday. He never shot up a place before. Actually, he did once, but he wasn't up to 3 strikes. All right? But, you know, we would all kind of agree that yesterday was a really bad day for everybody, including him. All right? So, yeah, they're all fine until they're not. Every horse in a barn is great until they're lame. They were fine yesterday if you drive old cars. Well, it ran good yesterday. It was fine until today, right? What does that matter? But we put it off and put it off and put it off for all sorts of reasons, and then we finally fire them when it's impossible not to. Then we hire the first breathing body because we got a hole we got to fill. Yeah, she's got a Mike Tyson tattoo on her head, you know, and she's got, you know, 6 rings hanging out of this ear, and she's got a fuck employer's t-shirt on. And but she showed up for the interview on time. And I got to have somebody. Can you spell dentist? Yes, you're hired. Listen, it's what you all do. You can't get me. I got smart clients. They do it all the time. Right? I had one. He's always had really good people. He showed up the last time for a consulting day with 2 that. I said, they ain't going to last. What did you do? He says, well, I had to have somebody. You know, the other ones left. I had to have somebody. You and I just had this conversation, right? I got to have somebody. I said, you don't have somebody. You got somebody you're going to fire. That's what you got. Look at them. You don't even have to. They're here all day long. Did they look at a book on a shelf anywhere when we took a break? No. Fire them tonight on the way home. Get rid of them while you can. No, we do the opposite. I got a compensation question for salespeople on break. Create exceptional opportunity for exceptional people. This is Disney's whole compensation structure. Terrible compensation at the bottom for interchangeable folk. Good and then great compensation as you move up into mission-critical stuff. Create exceptional opportunity for exceptional people. Manage profits, not just people. Reject all the norms. So, Keith, are you here to join me? Would you please? So, Keith always shudders because he thinks I'm harsh.
Not so harsh. I got to tell you, people ask me, how did you end up in Ruthless Management book with Dan? Mm-hmm. And I do tell them that, you know, how many of you have my management system? Yeah, quite a few of you. You wouldn't call it ruthless, I don't think. And you said the same thing. And it was, but we agree on so many things. I don't think anybody who has my management system would say it was ruthless, but we agree on 99% of what he just went through there.
So here's why people should pay attention. So your claim to fame, and now I don't find the numbers. I had them, but you will know them. So when you still were running American Retail, which for those of you who don't know, you may know them from 3D mail results, and you now know them from the management systems. The original core business, American Retail Supply, it still is, but you sold it, is a company that like store fixtures and label guns and everything retailers need to operate their business, right? And a good-sized company.
4 distribution centers with lots of square feet in 4 different cities.
So Keith gave his real cell phone number out to every customer, every account, and told them, if anything ain't up to snuff, call me. I want to know, and I want to be in the game. I'm describing this.
One little thing, I asked him to call the office first. And if you weren't happy, and then if you weren't happy, to call me directly.
But they got a real number, not a fake to a recording the way I would do it. They got, they got a real number.
They did.
Right? And they could call you. So how many accounts in a year would American Retail service?
We sold right under 10,000 a year. And those 10,000 bought right under 50,000 orders a year.
Okay.
So we're dealing with them 50,000 times a year.
Okay, so think about this. 10,000 accounts, 50,000 orders, multiple items in each order. So I don't know, 500,000 ways things can go wrong. All right? How many calls you get here?
Maybe a half a dozen.
That's pretty good, isn't it? And that's testimony. Now, the argument I will make is it's not testimony to how good his people were. It's testimony to how good your systems were.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
And Robin's thing in the bathroom is not so bad. That's a system. That is a system. Okay.
So now, talk a little bit about beyond Gerber, if you will, but how you systemized to that point that you could go a year and get 6 phone calls. What does that look like from the ground up?
Well, what it looks like is having every single thing that you do documented, and down to the restroom, and documented. And then the key thing, though, is to get buy-in from your team too. So we call it system. Creating systems and team member empowerment. So empowering your team, creating the systems, and then at the bottom of every one of these things that is, every single thing is documented, it says, do this exactly like it says here, unless it doesn't take care of the customer. If it doesn't take care of the customer, take care of the customer, and then do whatever you need to do to get this fixed. So they have pretty much carte blanche to take care of the customer. But they also have to then help change the system. And that's how things get better all the time, whether you're there or not. And that's one of the things we do. We've got other things we do to make sure that happens.
Well, so now let's talk about the dreaded performance review.
Yeah,
right?
They're disgusting.
Well, and the idea that people could do this once a year, or once every 6 months, is laughable to me.
Or once a quarter even.
It's just funny, right, to me. But if you go get 500 management books tomorrow, 490 of them are going to have the standard. As you know, Uber has had 5,000 problems, but the most recent, so Eric Holder's law firm issued their big report this week to the Uber board of all their recommendations of what the company needs to do, which they accepted all of the recommendations. The CEO is taking a leave of absence. He's on his way out, like Steve Jobs. He ain't coming back. The leave of absence is going to be, you're out of here, kid. The pros are taking over. That's what's happening. But one of the Eric Holder recommendations that they announced they were accepting is quarterly performance reviews.
Woo!
You know, right? Like, that's going to fix this problem. Yeah. So talk a little bit about the alternative approach you've got in your system.
Yeah, well, I was in business school. My graduate is in business administration. And I learned that too, performance reviews. And what we do is management systems that you learn in business school, and almost everything out there is determined on catching people doing things wrong and fixing it. We move that the other way around. What we stress is catching people doing things right, reinforcing it, and then moving on from that. And we have what we call, instead of performance reviews, we have personal development interviews. And let me ask you, how many of you would like to be reviewed at your job versus developed? Would you rather review somebody, or would you rather develop them? And on the receiving end, if you're getting that review, would you rather be reviewed in hindsight, or would you rather be developed? And it's a matter of you're meeting with them more often, but in many cases, it's maybe, in some cases, if they're low jobs that are really under control, it may be one 10-minute meeting a month. But if it's things that are changing and have a lot of opportunity to improve, or there's a lot of opportunity, period, you have them more often. So for instance, at American Retail Supply, we would have them every other week with our sales reps. And so the sales manager would meet with them for about 20 minutes every other week and work towards these goals and these objectives that are the reportable objectives that they're talking about. And if they don't make progress on it every other week, then it's a matter of saying, well, if we didn't make progress on that, what do you think can you get done before we meet next time on that?
And
here's one of the other kickers here. Believe this or not, what we teach is that that employee, that team member, should leave every single personal development interview pumped up, ready to go and take on the world, unless you're ready to fire them. And as long as they're making progress, you shouldn't be ready to fire them. But if you wait 3 months or 6 months or a year, and now they haven't made progress, that's craziness.
well, and so what you're talking about is also a high level of specificity.
Yep.
So client gripes to me about the employee or all the employees, one or the other, right? And so once you've fixed, so like principally everybody comes to me for marketing, and there's only so many clicks on that dial, and after we've spun the dial around 2 or 3 times, now I get to hear about all your personal problems and all your business problems and all your pain and agony and suffering, right? And the employee thing is, of course, a big one, right? And so whether the complaint's about a person or it's about a group of people. So like I have a client who should have fired his tele-rep, his in-house sales rep, about 6-7 months ago. And ultimately his answer is, if I fire him, then I won't have a tele-rep. I says, you don't have one now. Or you got, I don't know what he is, but he's not a tele-rep because he's not on the phone and he's not repping. So I don't know what he's doing. But the complaint will be, I talked to him about this, and I didn't get any results. Right? Well, I said, what did you agree on was going to happen specifically by the next time you talk to him, and when is that?
Exactly, and that's what we do.
Yeah, and those answers are, he's like,
I talked to him last month and nothing happened in between.
Exactly. Well, it's as much your fault, right, as it is his fault. So this is why, again, if you use a sports analogy, you will see the reverse out of the Browns, by the way, in the last 5 years, has been we trade a player who was for shit, and they're a star wherever they go to, particularly if Belichick gets them. So the Patriots have gotten 3 guys from our team who couldn't find their way out of the locker room when they had a Cleveland Brown uniform on, and they're superstars at the Patriots. Did they change? No. The coaching system changed. That's what changed. It wasn't their fault. They were in a completely dysfunctional system, right? And the reason I emphasize it, even when I confess to you I have no moral authority, is where, like in my work with clients, where I stop, which is we've increased the flow of people coming to do business. However that is. They're coming through the phone, they're coming through the door, they're whatever. Now I'm out of it. I didn't do any good, right? Because their
systems are broken.
Their systems are broken.
In many cases, they can't handle it.
They can't absorb it. You kill them, right?
Yeah.
So people who know Gerber will make the connection. Where do you think you pick up where Gerber stops? Or where do you think Gerber has sinned by omission?
First off, Gerber's stuff is fabulous. I had to start the book. I started the book like 4 times before I finished it because it was like reading my stuff that I had already put together for myself. Where you get the pullback is you're still left, when it comes to performance management, he doesn't address it at all. So you're still left with either performance reviews or those erratic and random acts of management that when something goes wrong, you try to fix it. So you're left with that, number one, is the big thing that you're missing. The other thing that you're missing there is that Gerber talks about the franchise model. And in the franchise model, the franchisor gives the franchisee everything that they should do, every single system that they can do. And if you're McDonald's, that makes sense. That's fine. You can have teams of people out testing things and getting things done and making sure that everything is perfect before you implement it. If you're doing that in your own business, that's you. You have to create all these systems. And you don't want to do that. You want to get your team involved in creating those systems because, number one, you ain't that smart to create them all. Okay? You're not a team. Those people are the ones that are, in most cases, the ones that are really face-to-face with your clients, your patients, your customers, and face-to-face with them. And those are the people that you want to get involved with that and creating those systems, because otherwise, you're doing it all yourself. And that's one thing we certainly don't want to do. And then Gerber leaves it with you said earlier, never start with nothing. Mm-hmm. Okay. Gerber leaves it with nothing because you're supposed to create all these systems that he gives you. What the reality is that about 70% of what every business does, every other business does the same kind of things. So why do you have to start out with zero? Okay, so what we do is with our clients, and I'm not pitching here, but the reality of what happens is that they get all of the systems that have already been the written documentation, and they simply tweak them. So you get about 70% of the stuff you need in your business tweaked from what's already given. It's the same thing as we do in our marketing. You guys get all the marketing from Dan for you. You tweak it for your own business.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.